In my experience, many men discover their spouse's infidelity through unexpected returns, overheard conversations, or found evidence. For me, however, it was more straightforward. My wife emailed me. Although it was unintended, I deduced that her email software suggested my name, and she clicked without verifying, a frequent oversight, particularly in haste. The unexpected message from my wife after 18 years of marriage, titled "Regarding Yesterday," piqued my curiosity since yesterday was an ordinary Wednesday. I pondered why Anne would write to me about it. Upon reading the message, she expressed her joy over the day and her excitement for the upcoming week. She referred to herself as "my lady." Given that I had spent the entire day at work on Wednesday, and I believed Anne did too, our lack of phone conversation added to my confusion. Her unusually cheerful demeanor upon returning home made the betrayal palpable. My initial instinct was to challenge her in the evening, demand an explanation or a confession. Pondering logically, I suspected she might dismiss the letter's significance, offer another interpretation, or treat it as a jest. Unproven accusations might yield nothing. After contemplation, I chose to wait. It would be intriguing to see if Anne acknowledges her error and offers an explanation. If not, I have been forewarned and can utilize the information about her upcoming date. Anne operates in real estate with irregular hours, arriving home late that night. Her behavior appeared normal despite my careful observation. If she was aware of the letter's mistake, she didn't betray it. I refrained from hinting at any issue either. The evening transpired normally, but sleep eluded me. Instead, I scrutinized the predicament to disentangle the mystery. There might be a wholly innocent explanation. Precipitate action could jeopardize our marriage, and I cherished my spouse. If the letter exposed an affair, our union was at risk, and I needed to respond accordingly. The following day, I resumed my investigation and reached out to a private detective service to trail my spouse. Regardless of her normal activities on Wednesday, it wouldn't alleviate my concerns, but it would offer some relief. If my suspicions were warranted, I aimed to uncover the truth and take decisive action. Once I did all that was feasible at the time, I set aside my worries and returned to my work. The next Wednesday appeared ordinary. Anne and I commuted to work and returned home late. Nothing appeared out of place in her demeanor or conduct. In an attempt to conceal my apprehension, I spent the day in my office engrossed in reading materials. On Thursday, I consulted with the detective agency. Though not overtly emotional, I could discern emotions. The detective corroborated my doubts with photographs of Anne at a motel near the airport, entering a room with a man and exiting hand in hand. The detective conveyed that it's usually unpleasant to validate such suspicions. After a brief pause, I requested additional assistance. If the motel served as their regular rendezvous spot, I sought more photographs of their activities within the room. You concurred, hinting at settling the bill with the motel manager. I acknowledged, ensuring the proof would be compensated. Back in my office, I found it hard to focus on work as doubts removal seemed to hinder my thinking capacity. Abandoning work, I turned my attention to strategizing. Besides confirming my wife's infidelity, I comprehended why Anne accidentally mailed the letter to me. Mark Bradshaw, our neighbor and lover of Anne, was recognized as the individual involved. It appeared that my name, McBishop, had been auto-filled in the email program. Realizing Mark and his spouse were our friends intensified the situation's pain. I felt compelled to act, but was uncertain about the specifics. For hours, I mulled over various possibilities, ranging from vengeful daydreams to appealing to Anne not to depart. Thoughts regarding the affair haunted me until I decided on a strategy to attain my objectives. The detective expressed sympathy, acknowledging it's always distressing for us to validate your suspicions. What should be our next steps? He inquired. After a moment's reflection, I asked him for assistance once more. Apparently, the motel serves as their frequent gathering spot. If that's the case, could you capture images of the activities within the room? The detective didn't falter. We are skilled at amassing such evidence. You may need to compensate the motel manager for cooperation. If that suits you, we can assure results. I gave a nod. I'll pay for the proof. Upon returning to my office, I found it difficult to concentrate on my work. With all doubts dissipated, my cognitive abilities appeared to dissolve. Eventually, I abandoned work and instead devoted myself to strategizing. Besides validating my wife's infidelity, I comprehended why Anne inadvertently sent the letter to me rather than him. I was aware that her paramour, our neighbor, was Mark Bradshaw. Since my surname is McBishop, the email software likely suggested my name after Anne typed the initial two letters. It's negligent not to verify, I mused, but emotions cloud the vision of lovers. Discovering that Anne was involved with her lover heightened my feelings of deception. Mark and his wife, Bobby, were our close friends. We frequently dined together or went to movies, yet I had never detected any romantic feelings between Anne and Mark. Was I oblivious, or were they adept at concealment? In any case, I knew action was necessary. The issue was what course to take. For hours, I mulled over numerous options. At times, vengeful fantasies crossed my mind, and I envisioned pleading with Anne not to leave. Thoughts about the origins of their affair and its duration plagued me. My emotions oscillated between anger and self-pity. Eventually, I concluded that not only did I know what I desired, but also had a sound strategy. My plan consists of two independent actions taking place simultaneously. I refer to them as divide and conquer, separate the lovers and regain her affections. The first component utilizes my knowledge to create a rift between them. The second is an aggressive pursuit to win back Anne's love by becoming an ideal spouse. I will demonstrate the drawbacks of Anne's relationship with Mark and the advantages of rekindling our relationship. I jotted down actions, strategized timing, and analyzed dependencies. Maintaining secrecy about my knowledge is crucial. It demands self-restraint, but I believe I can pull it off. I won't act until I receive another report from the detective agency, but I can prepare in advance. I procured a recording system for our home phones and a covert voice-activated device installed in Anne's car. Blocking our home phone line eliminated that communication avenue. Although I couldn't tap her mobile, the car seemed to be where she would call Mark. I wasn't concerned about work calls. It was unlikely she'd have private conversations there. My next move was gaining access to Anne's email. Her home computer had access to her work email. She protected it with a password, but I knew where she kept her passwords. It didn't take long to get in. I set up copies of all messages to be sent to me. Waited for the detective agency to provide images of their next encounter, but instead, they supplied videos, photographs, and audio recordings, an unexpected development. Bracing myself, I scrutinized their intimate moments. To my astonishment, there was a palpable display of affection, even love, between them. The intensity of their bond left me doubting the feasibility of my plan. Nevertheless, with no other options, I decided to persist. My wife, impatient and averse to disappointments, was a crucial element. I aimed to manipulate this vulnerability to jeopardize her relationship with Mark. At the same time, understanding her romantic disposition, I saw an opportunity to further my strategy. Access to all her emails gave me a strategic edge in executing my plan of action. Their following email conversation supplied the details necessary to commence the initial phase of my scheme. "Are we still set for Wednesday?" Anne inquired. Affirmative response. "A single occasion, a specific location. I am eager," Mark replied. On the day of their upcoming rendezvous, I navigated to Anne's workplace, parking inconspicuously. As soon as she returned from lunch, I nonchalantly passed by her parking area, making sure no one was in sight, and then hid beside her car. Within a minute, I removed the valve cover on the tire, letting out the air. Then I made my way back home, contemplating what she would do without transport at work. True to form, 20 minutes before Anne was due to meet Mark at the motel, she contacted me for assistance. I reassured her not to fret, informing her that my workload was manageable that day, allowing me to fix her vehicle. I explained that I merely needed to complete one task first before arriving. I waited an extra quarter of an hour before departing, almost making it on time for Anne's arranged meeting with Mark. Upon arrival, she stood by her car, visibly anxious. I offered apologies for the delay, citing unexpected job duration. As Anne restlessly paced, I meticulously replaced her flat tire. Positioning my car behind hers, I ensured her departure was prevented until I completed the task. Over an hour elapsed since she was meant to meet Mark, post-tire change. I extended another apology, concerned it might strain her client relationship. She responded with a resigned, "He just has to understand." During the tire alteration, I observed Anne's phone ring repeatedly without answering, presumably to dodge a conversation with Mark in my presence. My suspicions were validated when I found an enthusiastic exchange between them upon my return to the office. Mark had been waiting at the motel for over an hour, expressing agitation about the flat tire. I pondered, good, as I concluded I'd disturbed their scheme slightly. Following dinner that night, I led Anne to the sofa, placed her feet on my lap, and pampered her with a soothing foot massage. I articulated my comprehension of her taxing day and desired to offer a small act of kindness. Initially suspicious of my intention, she soon eased as I persisted in attending to her legs, and a content smile graced her features. Over the week, I bided my time before making the next move. On Monday, a generous floral arrangement with a heartfelt note arrived at her office, acknowledging the best wife any man could have. Although she skillfully concealed any regret, she warmly thanked me upon our return home, recounting the favorable impact it had on her coworkers. Intrigued by the gesture, she inquired about the significance, observing that such a gesture was unprecedented from me. I reciprocated with a hug and expressed my aspiration to alter that course of action. I shared that the concept originated from contemplating potential scenarios if she encountered a flat tire on the highway, intending to express my deep affection for her. She briefly examined me before embracing me warmly, saying, "That's extremely thoughtful of you, dear. It truly touches me." I pondered whether she felt remorseful. Through her email, I discovered they were arranging a secret rendezvous in the near future. I desired to interfere with their plans, but this time it seemed suspicious if I tampered with Anne's car again. So I allowed her to proceed without hindrance, yet kept a low profile and followed her. Once she entered the room Mark had reserved, I exited and circled around to the motel's back, entering through the side door. The motel was unassuming and lacked surveillance cameras to capture me triggering the fire alarm in the corridor. I remained outside until I spotted the guest being escorted to a secure location within the parking lot. I didn't see Anne and Mark at the gathering, but I guessed they were there, seemingly disgruntled like damp fowl. In my workplace, I gleefully observed emails bouncing between the dejected couple. "Anne, your words are nonsensical. I'm so infuriated I could shout." "Mark, I apologize, but it's not my fault." "Anne, next time opt for a location that won't pose a fire risk." This resonated with me as being Anne. Upon her arrival home from work, I observed she remained upset. However, her demeanor transitioned from tension to astonishment upon observing the dining table decorated with linens and our finest china. The scent of her favorite dish simmering on the stove drew mock skepticism from her as she looked at me. In response to her query about my sudden kitchen endeavors, I humbly revealed that I had contacted her office in the afternoon. Upon learning that her client meeting was postponed, I presumed she wouldn't want to cook upon returning home. Though a momentary flicker of worry graced her visage, she soon masked it with gratitude, replying, "What an exquisite gesture you're making, my dear. You always take such good care of me." Post-dinner, I persisted in forbidding her aid with the dishes and guided her to the office while initiating my favorite television program. Upon my return to the kitchen, I sensed her gaze upon me, feeling assured that my scheme was unfolding smoothly. Despite Anne's potential reservations about the affair, the next missive from Mark left no room for misinterpretation. He still held fast to his intentions. He conveyed a yearning for another rendezvous with my spouse and planned to heighten the experience. In reading Mark's message, I cursed his relentlessness and lamented Anne's continued participation. It was plain that additional measures were required. I delayed until midday on the day prior to their scheduled encounter and phoned the Hyatt Hotel. Claiming to be Mark Bradshaw, I communicated to the clerk that I needed to annul my room reservation for the following day. The cashier told me my cancellation was beneficial because of a major conference they were hosting. Content with this detail, I chose to drop by Hyatt to witness the unfolding events. Perched near the reception desk, I hid behind a newspaper. A couple arrived just in time, exuding affection and engaged in dialogue. However, their demeanor changed drastically upon learning they had no room. Mark voiced his annoyance, asserting he had reserved a room several days prior. The clerk apologized, clarifying the reservation had been canceled. Mark tried to make a fresh booking, but the hotel was fully occupied. Anne, clearly upset, pressed him to depart. Disappointed, Mark followed her to the parking lot, failing to soothe her agitation. Once they both drove away, I thought smugly, my mission is complete. When Anne returned home, I waylaid her at the door, informing her we were leaving. Without protest, I steered her towards my car, held open the door for her, and assumed the driver's position. In response to her query regarding our destination, I flashed a smile and hinted at an evening surprise. I switched on the radio to soft tunes, maintaining an uneasy silence. Her eyes followed me inquisitively, trying to decode my intentions. Slightly apprehensive, she probed why we were heading to the Hyatt. In response, I winked and promised she would find out soon. We boarded the elevator of the hotel, pressing the button for the topmost floor. Moments later, we were at the rooftop restaurant in the Hyatt Hotel, renowned for its rotating dome. I informed the head waiter of my name, and he acknowledged our presence, noting our timely arrival. As we were being guided to a table by the edge, he revealed a panorama of city lights. Inquisitively, Anne asked with suspicion as to why this location had been chosen. I clarified there was no particular reason, only my belief it would be an ideal backdrop for my lovely spouse. She offered a tight-lipped smile in response to the compliment. Probing further, she questioned how I'd secured a table given the town's convention. I nonchalantly responded that it wasn't difficult. I had simply called and reserved one for the day. Although Anne didn't respond, I knew my success starkly contrasted with Mark's failure. Continuing, I hinted at having booked a table as soon as I learned of their plans to meet, and went ahead and ordered. She thanked me, insisting it was unnecessary. Grateful for my thoughtfulness, she relaxed. Her joy grew when the waiter delivered an ice bucket and a bottle of champagne. Following a few toasts, she brightened up. Upon receiving oysters on half shells, she beamed. Inside, I admitted that I wasn't fond of oysters, but Anne adored them as her main course. Afterward, the waiter delivered a salmon Nicoise salad with black olive dressing, pleasing Anne. With a grin, she commented that she believed I would opt for something hearty, such as a substantial steak. I convinced her, explaining that the salad was an excellent choice, given her preference for salads, and moreover, we didn't wish to overindulge. She raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. For dessert, the waiter provided 2 bowls of fresh raspberries topped with whipped cream and glasses filled with Grand Marnier liqueur. Anne appreciated it greatly. On our ride home, she loosened her seatbelt and nestled closer to me. It seemed that the mix of drinks and oysters had achieved its purpose. Perceiving that she might be both agitated and thrilled following the disappointments of her recent dates, I guided her immediately upstairs to our bedroom. I suggested she change into her nightgown while I attended to other matters. Upon glancing at the wardrobe, I swiftly inspected the guest room to confirm it was prepared. Returning, I admired as she selected a sheer black nightgown, showcasing her figure's contours. Escorting her towards the guest room, where candles scented the air around an uncovered bed, I explained that touch and scent would be her sensory focus for the day. Placing a sleep mask over her eyes, I guided her to the bed, removed her clothes, and laid her on clean sheets. Holding a bottle of almond oil under her nose, I directed her to inhale it. I moistened my hands with water and started with a brief foot massage. She sighed blissfully, and I persisted, ascending to ensure she was utterly relaxed. Attentive to her shoulders and arms, I turned her over and repeated the process on her back until she sighed again. Our mutual pleasure peaked in a climactic instant before we succumbed. I took off her mask, indicating she may have fainted or succumbed to exhaustion. I transported her to our bedroom, covering her with a blanket, and she soon dozed off. Following a brief wash, I returned to bed, contented with how the night had transpired. Usually, Anne and I kept distinct schedules, but she awoke early the following morning. Upon descending, I discovered she had already prepared coffee and breakfast. Her eyes gleamed as she conveyed her appreciation for the memorable night. I reciprocated, expressing my joy that she appreciated it and acknowledging that I'd cherished the memory. She offered a smile, and I sensed Anne and I were making significant strides. Later in the day, I intercepted an email confirming Mark was still trying to set up a meeting with her. Mark apologized for the mix-up at the Hyatt Hotel regarding his reservation, expressing bewilderment. Anne responded, hinting perhaps it wasn't meant to happen. Mark persuaded her not to give up and suggested they spend Saturday together at their lake house since Bobby was leaving town. As Mac usually plays golf on Saturdays, Mark proposed an inconspicuous timing for their meetup. Excited about reconnecting with Anne, Mark found himself at a crucial juncture in his plan. He sensed the divide and rule strategy becoming more potent. To prevent any loss of progress, he needed to act over the weekend. Their revised plans posed a challenge. Canceling golf was out of the question, and Anne might find an excuse to leave. Secretively touching her car could raise suspicion and risk everything. In need of a last-minute plan change, inspiration struck. A simple yet effective solution presented itself with a single phone call. He continued with his routine during the week, but replaced Anne's mobile phone battery with a dead one on Friday night. If Anne intended to call Mark over the weekend, she'd utilize her home phone, providing an opportunity for me to eavesdrop on their chat. On weekends, Anne and I typically opt for casual attire. Nevertheless, when Anne descended the stairs on Saturday morning adorned in a striking skirt and blouse, I couldn't help but notice. As my departure time for golf grew near, Anne observed me with a degree of unease, possibly due to my lack of preparation to don my regular golf outfit. When 10 a.m. rolled around and I showed no signs of departing, it became evident that Anne was concocting a ruse to leave. Growing restless, she confronted me, inquiring about my golf plans. Just then, the doorbell chimed. Annoyed, Anne responded to the summons, discovering her sister Miriam on the other side, a weekend guest that Mark had invited. The women exchanged warm embraces. Despite the unexpected arrival, Anne was happy to see Miriam. Miriam shared that Mark had extended the invitation earlier in the week, as she had no prior engagements. Anne and Miriam might be sisters, but their schedules seldom aligned due to the distance between them. Delighted by Miriam's presence, Anne appreciated the break from her usual routine, understanding why I hadn't gone golfing. Inviting Miriam to breakfast, I hinted at dressing up a bit, though jeans suited her well. Anne blushed, but quickly composed herself. Offering to help with her luggage, I mentioned a brief call to make before she changed. Hearing some muffled curses as she disappeared down the hall, I later found out her mobile battery had died. Frustrated, she held her unresponsive phone and voiced her annoyance. I empathized, suggesting using the home phone, but she waved it off, claiming the call wasn't urgent. She then asked about our breakfast plans. Over the weekend, I endeavored to strengthen my bond with my sisters, aiming to boost their moods. As Miriam prepared to depart on Sunday afternoon, she hugged me gratefully and intentionally. "You told Anne, your husband is unique." Anne seemed to wince slightly, but she returned a smile and gave me a hug, pledging that she would. Even though I was certain Anne had utilized the weekend to contact Mark, I remained untroubled if it occurred on our home phone as I had it saved. Following Anne's Sunday night departure to bed, I inspected the recording and found that the call transpired in early Sunday morning. In her conversation with Mark, Anne recounted her sister's sudden visit, clarifying her unavailability on Saturday. Their dialogue fascinated me, their discontent apparent, and I felt as if I had inflicted a significant wound upon their relationship. Let's hope this suffices. Supporting my theory, their Monday emails showed, "Mark, shall we meet this week?" "Anne, I don't believe so, Mark. This has become inconvenient and beginning to annoy me. In addition, Mac has been quite kind to me lately, and I feel somewhat remorseful for betraying him by reaching out to you. I believe it's time to conclude this matter. Mark, please refrain from commenting. Anne, let me clarify once more. And indeed, I mean what I say, it's at an end. Mark, I understand your feelings, but I can't help but feel disheartened. You remain an appealing woman, yet I comprehend the topic you're referring to. It might be for the best. I don't wish to lose Bobby as well. However, I hope we can maintain our friendship, and of course, we will continue being friends, just without those additional perks. In the evening, Anne arrived home looking dejected and preoccupied, occasionally revealing moisture in her eyes. Not wanting to pry but feeling compelled to address her state, I asked with worry if she was all right and whether there were any work-related issues troubling her. She responded simply, "I'm fine," avoiding eye contact, and hinted that she might be in a bad mood. I acknowledged this, granting her some privacy. In secret, I felt victorious, believing she grieved over her breakup with Mark, although it was she who initiated it. Perceiving her sadness, I understood Anne poured emotions into relationships and grappled with parting. Although her mood eventually stabilized, I couldn't help but ponder that Mark would react differently. Cynically, I mused, he must be with Bobby now. The next morning, Anne appeared in a better mood. During the day, there were no more messages between Mark and her visible, strengthening my assumption that neither had reconsidered. This only increased my sense of victory. In the evening, following dinner, as Anne stepped into the study, I held an Edgar Allan Poe book in my hands once more. When asked about my book selection and its subject matter, I responded that it was one of my favorites, The Cask of Amontillado. Acknowledging her unfamiliarity with it, she snuggled close and interrupted my reading to express how wonderful a husband I was. Looking into my eyes, she sincerely said, "You've been incredibly kind to me lately, and I feel extremely lucky to have you." Her expressions of gratitude filled my heart with pride, confirming my success. This moment, which I had long awaited, began to unfold. She paused, and for a brief moment, a hint of guilt crossed her face. Moistening eyes, she passionately declared, "I truly don't deserve you." In response, I remained calm and simply said, "No, you don't deserve me." Reaching for the desk drawer, I sharply tossed photos of her with Mark at the motel onto her lap. Initially taken aback by my sudden change in tone, she struggled to comprehend what I had handed her. Studying the frames and their contents, she burst out crying, "Oh my God, no, no!" I gave her a copy of the divorce papers my lawyer had submitted earlier that day. Her breath stuck in her throat. But I thought, isn't there any way? I calmly countered, handing her another stack of documents. "No," I added, "and if you're curious about Mark, here is a copy of the letter I sent to Bobby tonight, accompanied by the detective's report. You have also written a similar letter to your sister Miriam, explaining why I am divorcing you." She groaned in agony and cried again. "I just don't understand. You've been so loving and kind these past weeks. I can't believe you're so heartless now. Does all this mean nothing, my dear?" I responded coolly. "When you initiated your affair, you ended any love I had for you. That's why I have spent the last few weeks trying to end your relationship with Mark. Regarding my actions towards you, I aim to ensure you comprehended the magnitude of your betrayal. My intention was to retrieve from you what you had taken from me, and based on current indications, it appears my strategy succeeded flawlessly." Anne fell onto the couch, weeping intensely. Prior to departing, I left the Poe book I was reading atop other papers. The text was still exposed on the cask of Amontillado, and using a marker, I underlined the section containing the Montresor family motto, "No one dishonors me with impunity."